Give Ellen extra. What
You're
is
live.
this?
I'm just kidding. I was
Are we
gonna say,
underwater?
I didn't hear you.
Are we underwater?
let's play with that volume a little bit.
Give Ellen extra time. Somebody cut the amplifiers on.
It's not real high. The volume's not real high, but that was on. Move this back a little bit. Back just a tiny bit.
So Rick, can you see this building from your house?
No, I could just see that, it looked like it was in the general area
Okay.
when I was driving down the hill.
I thought you were way up on a hill over there somewhere.
Yeah, I
Actually,
am.
see the building.
Couldn't quite see this.
Call the meeting of the Board of County Commissioners, Monday, July 22nd, 2019, at 6 o'clock to order. As always, start off our invocation is Commissioner Mendenhall, sir.
Thank you. Join me if you would, please. Almighty, gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening with humble hearts. Father, we pray that you will go with us each and every day. Reach out and touch us. And please give us the precious hand of decision making and help us to make the right decisions for Stokes County. Father, for all the ones that are sick, we pray that you will touch them, make them well if it's thy will. And if not, we pray that you just give them thy guiding hand. Now, Father, we pray tonight for our meeting tonight that you will go with us and help us make the decisions that will help Stokes County continue to grow. Now, Father, I pray for each and every person here tonight that came out in this weather, and we thank you for this beautiful rain that we had this evening. All of these things we ask in thy precious name, Lord. Amen.
Amen. Continue standing for our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry about that. All right, go ahead, get the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion is second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Move on to our comments from the Commissioners and Manager, and I'll start with Commissioner Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to welcome you folks here to the meeting tonight and anyone who happens to be watching on the YouTube channel. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, sir. Commissioner Walker?
We'll try to be as short as Commissioner Morris. Just good to see you folks. Glad you're here. And like Commissioner Morris says, hope we have some folks watching on our live stream.
All right. Commissioner Yance?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Echo the sentiments of the fellow commissioners. Welcome everyone tonight. Thanks for coming out and braving the weather. I thought I was going to get stuck in the parking lot for a few minutes. I didn't have an umbrella and I was getting ready to call in late, but thankfully it broke long enough to get in. So again, welcome everyone out tonight.
Probably a good thing you didn't. It sounded like it popped somewhere over here next, so it could have got you too. Commissioner Mendenhall?
Yes, just as always, I say thank you for coming out. We don't have a very big crowd tonight, but for the ones that are here, thank you very much. We appreciate your participation in our governmental process, and to everyone that may be watching this live stream, I say the same to you. Thank you for being a part of our process, our governmental process, and thank you for joining in if you are watching us tonight on YouTube. And to each of our commissioners, I just say thank you for everything you do for the county. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much. As the things they said, thank y'all for being here, getting stuff taken care of in the county. Thank y'all for watching live. And with that, I'll move on to Mr. Oakley.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything, but I do want to welcome everyone here tonight, and I hope everyone is doing well. And you have a good night.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to our public comments. And we only have one tonight, and that's Miss Ellen Perry.
Good evening, Ellen Perrick, 1095 Wheeler Smith Road, Lawsonville. I'm here to give you an update on the arts. In the Apple Gallery in July, we have Belinda Eldridge. She had her reception, and it was very well attended. She does photographs. She's from Stokes County, so her work is often of that. The fourth Tuesday night paint night is Portrait in Charcoal. Artist Craig Richards is teaching people to create a portrait in charcoal, and that's going to be at the Arts Place 6 to 8 p.m. On the fourth Tuesday. Danbury Songwriters' next event is July 25th. Robin Bullock will be performing. Robin is hailed as a Celtic guitar god by Baltimore City Paper and one of the best folk instrumentalists in the business. He does everything from 17th century harp tunes to jigs and reels of rural Ireland and the Appalachians. So tickets are $5 in advance at the door, July 25th. July 26th, John Barry's bringing his full band. That'll be Friday night. Tickets are $40. Arts Council members get a discount, and you can get those at Brown Paper Tickets. This should be a really good show. He's come before, and of course we sell out every time. So July 27th, barn quilt class. This continues to be a great program. People love to paint their own barn quilt. So that's available in a 3x3 barn quilt size. 9 designs to choose from. You just go online and pick out your design, and she has everything ready for you. The next Danbury Songwriters, August 1st, 7 p.m. is Riley Bogus. I don't know if you've met Riley Bogus, but he lives over in Madison, and he plays the banjo. He is fantastic. Such a nice guy, and he'll be there. $5 is the only ticket price for that. It's a great price. August 3rd, Once Upon a Saturday, Stories That Sing. This is a free show for kids. It starts at 11, and the Burgess family is going to have books that are illustrated, and then they're going to sing along with that. So it's an interactive thing for kids, and it's the whole family can join in, so it's not just for kids. Danbury Songwriters on August 8th, Lee Kaufman. She's based in Raleigh, but her music features a clear voice, ear-catching melodies, and beautifully crafted lyrics. Some of the comments we've had from the songwriter series, almost everybody that plays says when they leave, we never play someplace where people actually listen to us. They play in a club or a venue where other stuff is going on, people are talking and having food and things. So whenever they leave, they're always so appreciative that they come to a place, everybody pays attention and is so grateful for their talent. The kids' camps are halfway through. This week we're doing Take the Lead Dance Camp. That's at the Arts Place, and there's I think there's about 10 kids who are taking dance. This is the first time we've done this, and this is in collaboration with our communities of Northwest Stokes. New Perspectives on Art Camp next, and then Art of Cooking Camp August 12th. And we hosted our first bridal shower this past Saturday. Someone rented the Arts Place for a bridal shower. It was absolutely gorgeous, and they had about 60 people there. So we've had a prom, we've had now a bridal shower. I figure a wedding's pretty soon, so tell your friends and family. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. All right, with that, we'll move on to consent agenda. Have a motion for approval. A second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Move on to our discussion agenda. Information agenda, I'm sorry. We have Mr. Brendan Hooker for our report on the register of deeds.
Good evening. I think I'm shorter than Ellen. There we go. Well, thank you for letting me on the agenda tonight. I'm here to give you the update for the fourth quarter of the fiscal year. And last time I stood before you, I was painting a very different picture. We had very low numbers in the third quarter. The shutdown affected some residential mortgage loans that were government-backed, and new construction was held up by bad weather. And I told you I expected this fourth quarter to be busier, and for the most part, I was right. Revenue was up 50% over last quarter, and I said before, a large portion of our revenue comes from excise tax on land transfers, and around the middle of May, we collected $11,630 to be exact, excise tax on a single transaction, which gave us a huge boost and was the largest single excise tax on a transaction in several years, from what I can tell. And as busy as it was, we fell a little bit shy of last year's net revenue by $1,397, which is less than half of 1% of the revenue. So given that third quarter poor showing, I think we fared pretty well this year. And you can see there on your report, I think you've got the number of deeds and deeds of trust and the miscellaneous documents, plats, marriage license issued, notaries, copies. The number of transactions was a 4.83% decrease over the fourth quarter of last year, but the revenue was a little over 3% increase, and that comes a whole lot from that excise tax we collected in May. Total recording fees were $694.50, and total excise tax was $81,355 for a total gross revenue $137,4950. And you can see the numbers down there at the bottom, which is that conveyance tax is half of our excise tax by statute goes to the state of North Carolina. And then part of our marriage license fees go to the Children's Trust Fund and the Domestic Violence Center for the state. And then the state treasurer, we send them money to. Total money that went to the state out of our total revenue was $49,625.70 for a net revenue of the fourth quarter of fiscal year 18-19 of $87,423.80. And that takes care of the numbers. Since my last report in April, we've experienced some change in the office and personnel. The deputy register we had at the time moved to the tax office for a position that came open. And within a few days, I hired Miss Donna Rogers, who has some of the best customer service skills I have witnessed. And she's doing quite well and settled in very nicely. And I want to take this time to thank the board for the part-time position that you granted us in the budget. It was filled and by a young lady named Michaela Dodson. She began work last Monday and catching on very quickly. And the addition of this position is going to take some of the pressure off the current staff when there's an absence in the office, as well as enable us to get some of these older records scanned that we haven't had time to do. And it's going to set us up for future projects that's going to be a benefit to the citizens, I think. And speaking of scanning old records, I sent the oldest marriage records in the county off to Coal File Technologies in Greensboro back in January for preservation. These records range in age from 147 to 180 years old and are in very poor condition. And when they return, they're going to be in brand new binders placed in acid-free sleeves so that the documents won't be touched by hands, which will help it last more. Our hands have acidity in them, and it's very bad for the old documents, and these sleeves are going to protect them. And at this lab, I toured it back last spring. They remove old tape, glue, other adhesives from the document in a meticulous effort to further deacidify the documents. The marriage license should be back this month, and I invite anyone who's listening who wishes to come see them. Currently, they've been stored in these boxes just stacked on top of each other. That's the only way we've had to store them. But they're going to come back in these nice new binders. Our deed books have had the same treatment done to them up to deed book 35, which was printed in the 1890s. And this set of marriage license were older, much older, so I decided to try and catch them up to the deed books that we have. If an effort isn't made to preserve these records now, they're going to continue to deteriorate until they're no longer legible. I'm thankful to my predecessor who began this process, and I'm very excited for the opportunity to continue this good work. And that's it. That's all I have. Any questions, comments you may have?
Anybody have any questions or comments for Brandon? Commissioner Walker?
Unless somebody else wants to go first. Trying to be patient this evening. Brandon, I'm encouraged by the progress you seem to be making in certain ways. Several ways, sounds like. What else do you have around the corner that you're looking at that you're going to be telling us about before too long, hopefully? Any other changes along with the preservation of the records? And I think you continue to try to refine the process to streamline the operation in any ways possible. But what's on your mind going forward?
Well, further preservation. For several years, we have, by statute, 10% of our fees are set toward preservation and automations in a separate capital fund. And over time, it's been used for our website for automation. The website that's for public use, part of that's been used for that. But I made that a regular expenditure this budget, and that's going to be $12,000 more a year I can put towards preservation. And so we're going to be doing more preservation. There's also something I'd like to try in the coming months or a year or so that this part-time is going to be able to help us with. Every county around us has what's called a vet program. And I've mentioned it to some of you before, I think, where veterans come in and record their discharge papers with us. And there's no charge for that. There never has been. And they can get free copies of them, too, if they ever need them. But when they do that, we have to buy a camera and a little processing machine, take their picture, make them an ID card, and we solicit businesses in the community to offer those veterans who present the cards a discount. And it's up to the businesses to determine what that discount is. Every surrounding county, including very small counties, Allegheny County, they've got this program. Yadkin County has the program, Forsyth, Guilford, Surrey. It's a very good program. Guilford County started several years ago, and I don't know how many counties in the state have it, but it's a fantastic public relations community service project, and I'm excited to look into that a little further.
One thing I noticed as you were sharing the information earlier with us is that you did compliment one of your staff for their people skills.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I look for in every department. You've probably heard this since you've been in your current position, but citizen-friendly service. And I think you're also focusing on that from what I hear, and I want to commend you for that.
Thank you.
I have long received compliments for our Register of Deeds office, and I think under your guidance, well, there's a very good possibility that will continue.
We try our best. People usually stay longer than they anticipate staying in our office, but it's usually because we won't let them go. We keep them talking.
One other thing, and that is, do you have I'm not familiar, and I think some of our other citizens might not be familiar as well, with all the services provided by a Register of Deeds office. Is there somewhere that there's a comprehensive list of all the services that are available through the Register of Deeds office?
The Secretary of State's office, the Register of Deeds Association, they'll kind of work hand in hand and come up with these, we get them at the conferences, these maps, and they'll say it'll be for a particular program, and it'll highlight the counties that are participating in that program. So like EBRS is a system, electronic birth registration system, where you can pull birth certificates from other counties, not just your own. That goes through the Secretary of State side. That goes through NC Vital Records. There's probably lists through the association, the Register of Deeds. If someone would want that list, I'm sure they've got one that each county participates in. But as far as county by county, probably not. But if you wanted a list of our services, I'd be glad to make you one.
I think there might be some folks who might like to have one of those.
Mm-hmm. We've got information on the website about filing an assumed business name and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sir, does anybody else have anything for Mr. Hooper?
Is that veterans program when they record their DD 214?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea doing that.
It's been around a little while now.
I really support doing that.
Yeah, a lot of counties have it.
Good report. It's just the right level of detail.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So,
I just want to say I think you've got your priorities in the right place. Customer service is so important. I mean, to me, it is in your position and in your department, probably the most important is customer service.
I agree.
So thank you for all the emphasis you put on that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Yachts, you like to add anything? I don't have anything to add. Sugar, thank you for the update on it. Looks like everything's looking up. I'm glad to hear your new help's working out real well.
Thank you.
Move on to our discussion agenda. First item is the Life Bright Hospital. And Ms. Shatner, you got information on this?
Yeah, so at the last meeting, Pam was here and gave the quarterly update for Life Bright and discussed scheduling a meeting for the board as the Board of Trustees for the hospital. And we looked at some dates together, and there was some questions about the board and actually the makeup of it that was asked for me to clarify with County Attorney Browder, and I did that as far as in the bylaws of the hospital, so the Stokes Reynolds Hospital bylaws, that it is actually the elected board. There are no individual names on there. So you are the hospital board, sitting as you are now. So all that we need to do at this point is get a date on the books for Pam, and she'd rather do it sooner than later because she's already behind on that as far as the timeline for it. She said she typically has done it before a board meeting. Usually you come to the hospital and meet, and they set everything up there, and then you come back here. But if you'd rather do it here, they'll certainly come here as well. So she's just looking at the next meeting date is August the 12th for you all if you want to do it prior to that. Or she'll work with your schedules, you need to push it out a little further, but she just thought before a meeting might be easier for you than scheduling a separate day.
Okay.
Can everybody get,
August 12th to work
I
out.
was going to say, my recommendation would be August 12th, Shannon, before our board meeting here in the chambers.
Okay.
That's my recommendation. Of course, somebody else may not be able to.
She said the meeting usually doesn't take an hour, it's 45 minutes to an hour, so I don't know if you want to do it right at 5 and roll into this at 6, or if you want to do it at 4 and have some time in between. That's up to the board on how they'd like to schedule that.
Commissioner Yachts, what would work best for you?
Monday the 12th is the start of a major project with my employer, so the later the better for me. So 5 would be better, but I just want 5 obviously, so
Okay.
if I can't get here for that, I'll be here for the regular meeting.
Okay.
I like the old way of doing it. We'd meet at the hospital and have a nice meal and do our business. Hospital would serve us the hospital food, which is usually pretty good. And then we'd have our meeting right after a meal.
She did make that offer today. She said if you wanted to come a little earlier, like 4 o'clock there, that they would do it that way. So that's up to you all.
Mr. Walker, how long ago has that been? I've not been able to participate.
Our board of trustees ran the hospital until Pioneer took over. And when Pioneer took over, there was some discussion, Rick probably remembers this, but there was some discussion about whether we needed to even continue the board of trustees or not. And really, they kind of recommended that we do, so that was whenever Pioneer took over. Basically, we've not had, but maybe 1 or 2 meetings right about the time that happened, and none since then.
Thank you.
Commissioner Morris?
I don't feel strongly either way about where we have it. I think the more important thing would be to make sure we're all there, because it's, if you read those bylaws, we've got a good bit of responsibility associated. If Jamie's got a bad night, I'd rather even look at a different, later date to make sure we can all be there.
Yeah, we can, and
And I don't see anything wrong with the meal up there if he can get there in time.
yeah.
But I just want to do it here too. It doesn't really matter.
Is there a day that will work better for you, Jamie, that you can be there?
The 12th is fine. I just don't, I can't do it at 4. I can't.
You can do it at 5.
I can do it at 5.
I'm good with that then. That's what we need to do.
You want to say 5 and you want to say,
May I please? I have a question. Tried to think how to ask this, but kind of considering Commissioner Yancey's circumstances, if he has a high-pressure day, I don't want to add to it. I'd rather, if this startup of a big project, as he mentioned, I'd rather consider a different date.
okay,
but when we're not pressed for time.
That's the reason why I was asking, was there a better day, time that would work better for them? Don't have to be on a commissioner meeting day, but.
Again, I've already put in for that afternoon with the plans of our regular meeting.
Yeah.
So to leave, an hour earlier is that's not gonna be crucial. Okay. Still be okay.
Would that be easier for you than scheduling a whole separate day? Even if we did it at 6 in the
Honestly,
evening?
the 2 weeks after that is gonna be pretty hectic.
Okay. It looks like that's probably your best. Okay.
I'm good with that. Thanks for the consideration.
So the 12th, 5 o'clock here in the commissioner's chambers, I can let the hospital, okay.
I'll sure missed the meal.
We'll survive.
Usually do.
We'll just tell them to bring the hot dogs and chili dispenser with them.
You gotta watch out for those chili dispensers.
Okay. All right, got it.
All right. Move on to RFQ draft, Meadows Water. We got Mr. Delahunt in the room with us.
As I guess this is a continuation of what we went over last time in seeking direction from the board on sending out an RFQ. I believe we discussed placing 2 members on the committee as the results were to come in, that we would select 2 commissioners to serve on the board with some other county staff to make a decision on which engineering firm to do business with possibly. And I'm here to answer any questions related to that, that you might have.
Anybody have any questions,
I
Mr.?
got some, but I don't have to be first. Somebody else wants to go first.
Anybody else want to go?
I want to hear Commissioner Morris's questions, and then that might help determine some of mine.
Okay.
We'll get you first.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chair. Mark, are you guys involved in a water study, did you say last time?
Through the Water Sewer Authority, yes.
And how did that get funded? Did we get a grant or something?
We got a grant, and it was, I think we paid $750 is all that the Water Sewer Authority paid for it. And it gleaned $50,000 worth of engineering services that the county was able to benefit from, not just the Water Sewer Authority, and that was a county-wide. It was called a merger regionalization grant, which looked at the possibility of joining different systems together and making one out of 2 more or less, and where we might want to run water line in that effort, even though it may not make the actual connection, it would be a step in that direction.
So was there $50K to do it with, you said?
Correct.
Okay. So what areas did it look at besides Meadows? Did it looked at Meadows and other places too?
Yeah. Let's see.
What was the purpose of it, like to have a strategic look at all of the water for the county versus just one location?
Yeah, I made some copies. They made a large map for us that I made 5 copies of. These are general numbers and some general directions that I thought you may have already seen as part of the budget information, but maybe not. I didn't make myself a copy, so if you got any questions, I may have to come up here and look at it. But the study isn't totally complete yet. It's supposed to look at some other factors, but that was part of the product deliverables from that study.
And I have some other maps if you want me to pass those out.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yes, I do.
I'm with you now.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, the reason I asked the question is I just wanted to make sure that the board takes a strategic, a strategic look at the water as we look at Meadows, and as we look at getting additional funding for water.
Feasibility study that his grant done.
Scope it properly. I mean, it takes a lot of effort to get funding,
Absolutely.
and so maybe we want to get funding for more than just Meadows while we're at it or something. That's kind of my thought process.
Certainly something that can be looked at.
Was that kind of the purpose of the water study, so we could strategically plan the water
I think
for the
that's
county, or what?
that was the, I guess the, what do you say, the scope for that grant application is that if
Okay.
we look at joining it wasn't, we kind of were fortunate enough to be able to steer some of the studies in directions and in areas that we felt would most benefit the county. You know, and, we did that through discussions with the county manager and economic development and David Sudworth with planning and stuff like that as we consider different areas.
Okay.
I figured that.
What's the major message of this, would you say? I mean, like, is this the kind of the way we should, you know, we're talking about doing 311, and then is this other line down the side here going down to Germantown on the left side?
Yeah, that would connect those, that's number 8, is that what you're?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah, that would connect those two systems eventually. And kind of, we're starting from scratch here, and with a water system like that, when you are starting from scratch, your number one thing is you put in major trunk lines along the major thoroughfares, to which you can branch out from there. You get a kind of a interstate running through, which eventually you run your smaller roads off of.
Okay. So then it also shows a track down to Walnut Cove and then a cut through to get over to 311.
Yeah, that's so we wouldn't have to go through Walnut Cove's water system. They have a fairly aged system, and it's a well system, and I don't know, you know, it's something we could do, but commingling their groundwater with purchased water or whatever may not be the best option. So we looked at that.
Okay.
Bypass, if you will.
Okay. When's the report supposed to be finished, the study?
I think in about 6 months is the deadline, maybe less than that.
Okay.
And they're probably going to be soon, well before that. But as far as the product of maps and some rough cost estimates, I believe this is all we have. I think
Okay.
the other aspects of it are the ages of what we have and its condition, et cetera.
You come brief us on that whenever you get the final report.
Absolutely.
What's this, Jake, you just handed out?
That's the information from the study that he had done through the Water Authority, through this grant that he received, and that's the cost and type of work that was going to be put in, and the breakdown on all the costs that there would be for the Meadows area here.
Just for Meadows? This was just for Meadows?
Yes, sir, it is. And there's other ones in there that you see that the map he gave you, they're these same types of cost and construction work that will be done is available, but I only brought the Meadows side of it, and a couple of other maps that would show it. But
Yeah, this is some great information, because I'm sure the first thing I stand up here wanting to run water line, you're going to ask me how much does it cost. Well, that's going to be very helpful in that giving you a response, and all these numbers are on the high side, I feel sure, because construction costs are high, and right now contractors are quite busy. So
then you have the other type of work that was done when you were county manager with the other company, and so that information is here also. This has just recently been done through his grant process.
Okay, yeah. Let me ask my other questions, and I may get back to this sheet. My second question is, what strategy are you guys considering whenever to do this Meadows Community Project? And I think I may know, but I'm not sure I do. Are you going to use the same basic approach we used last time, where we talked about this last time, but put this committee together that kind of monitors the project? It'll have a couple commissioners who will give feedback to the remaining commissioners that aren't on the panel, and then have that, and then have somebody kind of, go get funding and come to that group for recommendations or whatever to update them on what we're doing. I mean, is the timing and the strategy kind of the same as last time? And would we put that committee in place before we really right here at the beginning, or what? What's your recommendation on that?
the committee is in response to selecting an engineering firm in response to the RFQ. Other than that, I don't know what exactly the committee would do, and that would be, I guess, at y'all's input.
Okay.
That would be my understanding of the committee, was it would be Mr. Delahunt, and you would have, if you ask my opinion, and you would have your economic development, and you would have your planning department, and you would have someone from administration, and then you would have your commissioners. And I would think that committee would be sitting the whole time this process was being done. And it would be a kind of an overseer of making sure that what was being accomplished in matters was done in the manner that the board is set out to have done.
Okay.
So I would think it would be a committee that would be established first, and then we start doing what we needed to do.
Okay, what's the funding strategy for doing this project? I think your RFQ says you're looking at USDA.
And other available grant agencies that.
Okay.
And there's different, I guess, components to the things you can apply. If there's a potential for a major employer come in, then there's maybe some economic development money through the state that could be had and some other things. And typically, it's been my experience that engineering firms are well-versed in what's going on and know some of the funding agencies by first name and could guide us through that process and get the best outcome at the end of the day.
Okay, first of all, I would say you definitely need multiple funders. I haven't seen any project that's done with one funder. Usually you get funds from one, then you leverage that to get funds from others.
Sure.
And as you decide what the scope of the funding's going to be, but I would definitely hit all the normal people, including Golden Leaf and so forth.
Make them tell us no.
Yeah, exactly. What's the, I noticed in the RFQ, if I remember correctly, it didn't say anything in it about grant management. Who's going to manage the grants from all these different funding agencies?
Again, my experience, that's been a function of the grant agency, or the engineering firm. They have people on staff that do nothing but.
Okay. To me, that's like one of the most critical parts of this, and it's not in the RFQ. You didn't ask them to quote you on managing the grants.
To give us examples of grant management, I didn't catch that. I thought when we get their stuff back, I guess we'll ask those questions.
Well, you know, we had my discussion last time on this. First of all, I've never seen engineering firms that get money for you, that go and talk to legislators and, you know, knock on doors and whatever. They, most I've ever seen one get is help get a little bit of money for a study. And I want somebody that's going to aggressively, you know, get this funding. You guys ain't got time to do that, or the connections in a lot of cases. So, and why is it limited to an engineering firm only? Like, there's other groups like the one we used last time that do multiple functions, grant management, and they bring engineering firms with them.
Right.
So is there some reason that it's limited? I just don't feel comfortable limiting it to an engineering firm that I don't, you know, unless somebody has experience that I don't have, I just haven't seen them be willing to go and get money for us.
And the sewer project and how we had a third party involved, that was my first experience like that. Every other one's been through an engineering firm.
Did they get the money for you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, put it in the RFQ then.
Sure.
That we want them to aggressively get the money for us, not us have to go talk. I mean, we can back them up and do briefings and stuff like I did before. But they got, in my opinion, they need to do what the other group did last time in almost the same way, that same aggressive approach to getting funding. And then they need to manage the grants once we get them.
Right.
Unless you want to do that.
To the end.
Right. You and I both know how much work that is.
It can be, and especially if it's not something you do every day. That's
Yeah,
right.
exactly. And they have reports and stuff that are required for years, and if you don't do them, they'll ask for their money back.
Well, this is on a smaller scale, but the one we're doing right now, that $50,000 study, they're handling everything.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, well, whenever they show up, I'm going to be asking them those questions.
absolutely.
If I don't get a good feeling that they're super aggressive in getting funding, then I don't think I'm gonna be too happy with it. But
I understand.
if you think I can do that, I'm willing to take a chance on it, I guess.
Well, I doubt anybody could give us a guarantee, but I think a proven track record of having grants that involve a number of different funding agencies would be something we would be looking for.
It's my personal experience, but they always tell you, well, grants have all dried up right now. That's what I've heard from everyone every engineering firm that I've dealt with in 9 years of doing this. You've done it longer than me, probably, but that ain't the attitude I'm looking for when I get them this time. So I would ask you to revise the RFQ to put both those points in there, that they have to manage the grants, vote on managing the grant, and seeking funding for us, if you would. Make sure those two things are added to it.
Okay.
What's the status of the design package we had before for water and sewer? We had a complete, not water and sewer, but just for water. We had a design delivered to us as part of our deliverables for
That's
the
correct.
original sewer project. Are we going to take advantage of that since we've already paid for it somehow, or do we in the information that you're
Anything
providing?
from that could be utilized by whoever we might hire certainly would, and that's something we would bring them up to speed on.
Okay.
When this merger regionalization thing, that was one of the things we gave them, any past studies, any past information that we had on engineering work, and it wasn't just that product that we gave them, and I'm sure they used that information as part of what they've provided to us, but
So you gave them that information, that study that's being done now?
I let them look at it, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, good. Yeah, we need some benefit out of it if we can get it, since we paid hard-earned money to
That's correct.
have it done. Hard-earned taxpayer money. I guess back to my original project, or question too, I would like to, I'd like to, maybe have the board look at more than Meadows as we go through this process, and make sure we're not taking too much of a short-term look at this, because gaining this funding is going to be a heck of a lot of work for somebody, and if we ought to be trying to get funding for more than one project while we're going through all this process that you'll have to go through to get funding, I wouldn't mind at least taking a look at that,
Expanding it.
or maybe have the study evaluate what we should do, and if we should do more than Meadows, if you would. So.
And in this study, Commissioner Morris, that Mr. Delahunt worked with, I think the second area that was looked at the strongest was the actual link into Rockingham County from the Dan River side of it, and linking Walnut Cove up the water line, and start utilizing and looking into developing the Dan River source of water.
One other thing we looked at, we've discussed before, I think we had an inquiry from the city of Madison about for them providing us water, because evidently at that time, I think they had a major surplus. So we probably make that study, but hopefully we'll take a look at that too, to see if that's relevant to our current scenario. That's all I have right now, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Morrison, does anybody else have any questions? Mr. Walker?
Thank you, sir. I really had mixed feelings after the last project. Matter of fact, I've got a lot of laughs from engineers at the Commissioners Conference over $300,000 for a 1,000-foot water line extension. I hope I never see that again while I'm on this board. And it's left a kind of a bitter taste in my mouth. I guess maybe might get over it somehow, but I'm not sure what it would take. I think it's good that you're looking in a direction that you're describing and the information you're sharing with us. I have a question for you and for our manager, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mark, when I was mayor of King and on that board, I really pushed pretty hard to have a city engineer, and that has paid great dividends over time. how close do you think we are, or are we there, or even are we behind in considering this, in looking at a county engineer? You, like the manager mentioned earlier, can only handle so much. I just did some calculations. This sheet's got 15 million on it. This sheet has, maybe it's this sheet's 15 million, another sheet, this one's 25 million. That's a lot of work. It's a lot for one person to try to keep up with all that you handle with public, parks, you name it, maintenance, custodians. What are your thoughts about a county engineer?
I've known municipalities that have hired a county engineer, and what you really want is somebody that's willing to put their stamp on stuff, do design, permitting, everything. And I don't know of any municipalities, they all outsource that to an engineering firm with multiple resources, surveyors and engineers and CAD departments and everything else. I mean, unless you got a full-blown engineering firm like a large municipality, maybe engineering department like City of Winston or something like that, they still outsource somebody to draw up the plans, put the stamp on it, do the permitting part. And the city engineers, they're very beneficial. They're somebody that can speak the same language with the people they're doing business with. I guess that would be one of the advantages.
It seems to work very well for King. I think even better than expected, to be honest with you. And one of the reasons appears to be what you just mentioned. You have people that can talk a common language. But I'm looking at it from the perspective, too, of when we start looking at projects like we have in front of us right now, $40 million for us maybe or so, how big a rock are you willing to try to carry? And if we're going to add somebody to your staff, maybe the kind of person, and I'm just sort of exploring options, that we'd get the most bang for the buck from might be someone who can use their engineering skills, including the seal.
I would not be opposed to that by any means, but again, municipalities that, in my experience, that have a certified engineer on staff, licensed engineer, they don't use them for that purpose. They don't draw up plans and put their seal on it and send it off to the state for approval. I could be wrong. Maybe there's examples out there where that does happen without a large engineering department, so to speak, but I don't know of any.
I know the engineering king works very closely with the water and sewer.
Yes, he does, Scott. Yep.
Scott Barrow. But anyway, just a thought. I'm encouraged to see that you're involving King and Walnut Cove in the county's future plans. Now, is there some dialogue, some discussion with these municipalities, and maybe even at some point Danbury, in kind of coordinating the plans with them?
This same information will be available to them. I'd say the city of King already has water line everywhere, throughout the city of King. Same with Walnut Cove. We're looking to run the pipe in between them, so to speak. But they have access to all this information that's been derived from this study.
So you haven't actually had, or have you actually had direct conversation with them about the plans we're hoping to put in?
Walnut Cove, yes, and I believe maybe he spoke to the city of King some, but it was more about along the lines of sewer than it was water. And this particular study was just water, but we asked the engineering firm to give us some information on sewer too, which they did. It's not part of what lays before you now, but that's for another day, I guess.
I'm going to support your position as far as engineering firms able to acquire grants, because when I was talking, usually there are more engineering firms at the Commissioners Conference than any other, and some big, some small, and some in between. And when we stand and talk to those fellows and the topic of grants comes up, I get the same response you're describing. We've got grants before, we know how to get grants. If you you'll give us a chance, we'll show you we can get grants. But that, I agree with Commissioner Morris, that is something that doesn't need to be, no pun intended, taken for granted. We need to have that dialogue, have that discussion with whatever firm we're looking at as far as being involved with these projects. Someone mentioned other areas, and I tend to also see some advantage or some merit in a comprehensive plan for the county. Now, we did a 2035 plan, which sort of highlights certain areas that are likely to have future potential in certain ways. Is any of this connected or tied in with our 2035 plan?
The other day, is in response to Rick's question during the last commissioners meeting, in fact, I believe he was up in David's office with David Sudworth, and he confirmed that water line in that area would be fit right into the 2035 plan. I've not seen the 2035 plan, and this is probably the first I ever heard of it was on June 8th meeting, but he confirmed that it did fit in with that plan.
Good. Well, I'll stop there and give the other commissioners a chance to ask you their questions. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Commissioner Walker. Commissioner Yance or Mendenhall, do y'all have anything to add?
I'll just briefly say, I'll support, your recommendation, but I also support Commissioner Morris's stance that we're going to look at this and we're going to obtain or try to obtain grant funding. Is it better for us to ask for 10 or whatever to do 2 or 3 projects and hope that we get enough to do 2, rather than asking for enough to do 1? I would just pursue it. I think your recommendation there to pursue as much as we can in one fell swoop would be the correct way to go about it. Because at some point we're going to have maintenance on these lines, and if we're working downstream, then we're going to have to go back and perform maintenance. And I think if we can stay ahead of the schedule there and have new lines in as fresh as possible across the county, that way we're not backtracking to repair and not progressing down the road.
That's right.
So I would support that.
Thank you, Commissioner Mendenhall.
Yes, I think all the commissioners have certainly valid points and issues and ideas that they have brought forth tonight. I am in support of the way you're bringing this to us as far as the engineering, et cetera, and pushing for as much grant money as possible. And also, certainly the Meadows project, but I'm also in favor of looking at other areas also. But I think that, Mark, I know I've spoken to you and Jake and Will all a little bit about this, and I'm in full support of moving forward with this. Mark, I appreciate all the work you've done on it, and Will, and Jake, all of you. I've spoken to all of you a little bit about this, and pushing forward with the engineering, and also looking at as many areas as we can. We asked for 15, and if we want 15 million, if we can get 10 million and get 2 projects done instead of 1, more, that's great, more power to us. So I think you'll do a great job with this, Mark. So I'm looking to you.
Well, I'm looking to you.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it, seriously.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Commissioner Mendenhall. Mark, thank you for bringing this up to us and answering questions there. Sounds like we need to make some changes to it. And would the board be fine revisiting this in next meeting right there with the corrections on it?
I see 2 heads shaking.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the only additions I would request are just those 2 things where we include in that RFQ that they have to manage the grants and they have to aggressively get funding for us.
Okay.
The funding sources, so some wording to that effect, and I'll be fine with it.
Okay.
I just feel like this will help, and as I want to re-echo what Commissioner Walker said, and that is Commissioner Walker and I have been to several meetings together, statewide meetings. And we go around, and he and I usually go around to the engineers. And I will re-echo exactly what he said as far as their attitude toward this. So, Commissioner Walker, I always support what you said about that. That's all I have.
Okay. Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you.
He's gonna bring back a revised for next day. I mean, we're not holding you up on this too much, are we?
No, no,
Okay.
no, sir. Thank you.
Are you placing that revised RFQ with the 2 changes on it on the action agenda for next time, or back to the discussion?
I was going to ask, can this be, I know we're in discussion mode, but if he brings it back to us next meeting, and everybody has their questions or additions added to it or questions answered, I know Commissioner Walker, and I agree that a lot of times we don't like to move things from discussion to action. However, we have said that if it's time sensitive, we certainly have the right to do that. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm asking for your,
That's actually what I was about ready to say, to put it on discussion next time, and if all of us are satisfied with it, maybe move to action if we're all good with it.
Or put it on action next time and just discuss it under action.
You can
Do either one.
discuss, if that's okay. I mean,
Since we've had it on discussion at this
Two
meeting,
times.
we could put it on action next time.
That's kind of the natural sequence. And
yeah.
I think Mark is going to bring some information back to this board. Were you or?
I was going to update the RFQ to reflect the changes Mr. Morris requested, and I could probably get that to her by the end of the week to be sent out to y'all, independent of the agenda packet for you to review, and then if you had questions or something, you could contact me, individually or whatever. I'd be fine with however y'all want to do that.
On that basis, if I may, Mr. Chairman, on that basis, I would lean toward action. And as our clerk mentioned, if there is a need for further discussion, we have a pretty good, we have options when something's on action. We can act on it, we can not act on it, we can say, okay, we can't do all we need to do at this meeting, put it back on action for the next meeting. Or we can have discussion and then decide as far, somebody can even make a motion, for example, and then we have further discussion. So I'd lean toward action also.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to concur with Commissioner Walker. I'd like to see it on action also.
Commissioner Morris,
Action.
Commissioner Young? Okay, we'll just go ahead and put it on action next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to our purchase agreement. I've got Mr. Oakley on this.
Mr. Chairman, board members, this is something we've been working on for a while here, and that is the purchase of Mike Phelps Garage here at Mountain Road in Highway 8 and 89. We've been going through different studies to make sure that the purchase of this property is for the best interest of taxpayers. And we have doing this, we went through in contacting a company that would come in and do some environmental studies on the property that needed to be done. They did do one test, environmental test in phase 1, and they recommended additional studies to be done. And so in phase 2, they come in and done some drilling and testing of the water sample in the wells and other areas that may have looked suspicious as far as any type of spillage. And they have found in this study that the recommended results from this is that the following conclusion has been made, that low levels of reading were detected, which was within reason, and that the actual for them to move forward with anything would not be warranted. So as of right now, that they're done with it, and they're saying that there's nothing to be found on this piece of property that would warrant the county to be cautious of it. So the conclusion of this is that that Mike Phelps Tire and Auto Repair located on 1286 on Highway 8 and 89 through the environmental studies consist of the advancement of 7 soil studies and laboratory analysis of 4 soils and 1 groundwater sample. And the environmental was performed and evaluated the site's subsurface based on the historical use of the site. In addition, the testing was limited to the exterior, and that the everything was found within reason, and there was no further testing that needed to be done on this. So I'm asking the board to move forward with a purchase agreement. And I believe our clerk here has an updated purchase agreement from
Well,
our
it's an
attorney.
addendum. It's another addendum to change the date.
We've changed the date several times on this as far as the environmental people working and what we have found and discussed with Mr. Fulp on it. So, like I said, this is another addendum here. In this addendum, you will see that it is talking about a 90-day period also of removal of all of his equipment, real and personal, inside and out. And we are withholding a certain amount of funding until this property is cleared. And once this is cleared to the board's approval, then we will release the holdings in the closing statement through the escrow, and Ty would be handling that through his escrow account. So my recommendation to the board is that we move forward with this purchase, because I believe it would be a very good piece of property for the taxpayers, and you can utilize it in many different ways.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Oakley. Does anybody have any questions, comments?
No, I'd just like to say that I've read over this several times, and looking at the environmental studies also, and the ones that the county manager just mentioned, which is under conclusions 6.0 in our contract in the amendments. I don't see anything that catches my eye that would hold us back from this, so I'm certainly in support of the county manager's recommendation.
Commissioner Manhall, Commissioner Morris.
Yeah, just one couple questions. This means that he cleans everything out that's his there. It's a clean building when he's done. Because I guess you can't list everything. It's got a few items listed, but I don't know what else might be over there.
He's got all of his stock supplies where he done a lot of mechanical work.
A lot of stuff in there is what I'm guessing.
A lot of tires.
Used to be anyway.
A lot of new tires.
My other question is, 10,000 enough to motivate him for the 90 days, or do we need a bigger number?
I would hope so. We rode up there. We rode by it today, didn't we? Me and Will and I and Shannon and looking. It looks like he is starting to move some stuff out.
On the exterior, I don't
On
know.
the exterior, we can't get inside to look at that, but
10 grand needs to match the level of effort required to clean it up. So y'all thought that through. I'm good with it, but
we figured
only
more than 10
some
grand.
ship
maybe
on us
would-
here. Let us
10
have
grand would make me think twice about cleaning it out in 90 days. But we did give him 90 days to do this because it is a large amount of stuff to be moved.
Does anybody have any more questions, comments?
I know.
Mr. Walker.
Thank you, sir. Question really for Ty, if I may, please. Ty, have we dotted all the i's and crossed all the t's at this point? For example, is this the kind of thing that could trigger a public hearing or not?
It's just a real estate purchase.
It's pretty,
I don't know anything that would trigger it.
spending county money, but like you say, on the other hand, it's pretty straightforward business transaction.
We've had the different departments, Commissioner Walker, to look at the building, so it is a good, sound, solid building.
And I'm aware of some of that discussion, bits and pieces, that I've heard along, and some of the potential uses sound very good. That was a further question, and that is, I'm not for our county acquiring property just for the sake of having it. And if we're going to proceed with a step like this, I think we need to have some very good options that this could be used for. And what I'm hearing is you've already explored that and are quite satisfied that we would be able to put this building to good use.
There's several options. An EMS station in Danbury would be a great one. We don't have one other than what's utilized at the hospital.
Right.
A animal shelter was been mentioned.
Mhm.
Garage, moving the garage back has been mentioned. So it's several options that this board can look at, what they would like to see there that would benefit the taxpayers more.
How much acreage is there?
I'm gonna say close to 3 acres. I think it's two, is it 2 pieces? Is that, gosh, I mean,
It's a little, yeah, it was between 3 and 4 acres.
So if we had really need to expand for the future, we would have
really,
a
yes, sir.
plan to do it.
Yes, sir, you do. It was even looked at being one of the sites for your fueling station. If the board decided they wanted to do something like that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Commissioner Young, do you want to add anything to it?
No, I support it, and we've talked about this, and I still support it, and I think that the 10,000, I hope will motivate him to clean it out for sure, but I will say that the last time I was up and visited, he has a lot of new tires in there. I think he'll want to get them out.
Yeah.
He has a lot of good stuff in there, believe it or not.
Thank you, sir. Only
Do we own
question,
it? Do we own it if he doesn't get it out?
it says we can dispose of it after 90 days.
Yeah. It's really.
I was concerned then.
I think we can,
Exactly.
I think we can move it out and charge him for his storage fee and keep the $10,000 for the moving fee.
Just for clarification's sake, Mr. Chairman, may I ask
Yes, sir.
to verify what Commissioner Morris and I were just discussing? As I understand, what he doesn't move out, we own after 90 days.
That's correct. The addendum states that if he has not completely complied with, I think, paragraph 3, moving everything out, then I, as the escrow agent, pay the 10,000 to the county, and then the county can dispose of what's left as.
Is it on .gov or whatever?
Thank you, sir. Only question I have is right here where it says under the supervision of the buyer, and whoever we have there, before we fully give them that $10,000, are we allowed to say, okay, we won't, you left this stuff, we need this out here before you get that 10,000? Are we allowed to say that since we're the buyer, according to this contract here?
I'm not sure what you're asking. Ask that again.
Like in other words, let's say he gets done 60 days. There's still stuff in there that we see that, hey, we want it out. Are we allowed to tell him, look, you got to move the rest of this stuff out before we give it $10,000? Is that the way the contract is written?
All the personal property is there.
It's going to be a vacant building completely.
Okay. And it's up our approval.
With our approval, and there are some other things that Mark has expressed concern to me about maybe being a part of supervising the removal of certain things, which we will definitely be a part of in making sure this is done according to the way it needs to be.
Okay.
As far as the health standards of things. And then, of course, Ty will take care of all the closing fees and all the expenses that would need to come out.
Okay.
I have another question. So I'm just sitting here looking at the addendum, and I see seller shall remove all containers of petroleum products from the property. Seller shall remove all vehicles and trash from the property. I don't see anything that covers things like new tires.
That's the reason I was asking what I was asking, like, it has to be our approval before he's given that $10,000 according to this contract, the way it's written up. So even though it don't actually list tires, the personal population says, that's the reason why I was asking him, does that contract include all? Are we allowed to say, okay, well, you still have to have all this?
The personal property covers everything inside the building.
Where does it say personal property? Help me, Commissioner Yosh.
Line number
Line 4,
line
the
3.
last line, buyer may dispose of all of seller's remaining personal property as it deems appropriate.
Right, yeah, that's it.
And it says it in 3 about the, personal property.
Okay, I'm on.
Okay, I'm with it. Good deal. Do we need to place this on action agenda?
For the next
The next
meeting,
meeting?
if that's okay.
Everybody good?
Good.
Okay, moving on to the appointments, Stokes County Voluntary Agriculture District Advisory Board. And Mr. Oakley?
This is a request from Tom Smith, which just recently retired, and from Soil and Water Conservation. And this is to be approved 2 new members to the Voluntary Agriculture District Advisory Board, and that's Robert P. Lindsay and George Cutlin. Am I pronouncing that right?
I think it's Cousins, I'm not sure.
Cousins?
Cousins.
Cousins. Anyway, I apologize if I'm not pronouncing it right, but these are the 2 individuals that would be, that I'm requesting for Tom to be placed on this advisory board.
Okay. Any questions, comments on it?
Just have to open the floor for nominations.
I open the floor to nominations.
Motion nominations be closed.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Yeah, we'll place it on action for the next meeting.
All right, the DSS Board and the Board of Health Organizational Structure. Ms. Shannon?
Yeah, so basically what I was hoping to accomplish tonight is to get a feeling from the board on, I think everybody's in agreement on moving forward with abolishing the current way we're doing the boards, and we had hopefully those final meetings the other day with them, and getting a date set for a public hearing, and then we can move forward with that. I've got some information from we talked about this back in March, and County Attorney Browder and I both had information on that then, as far as the steps to take, as far as resolution to be adopted. That can come later when we get to the public hearing. The first thing we need to do now is set a public hearing date to abolish this board as the Board of Health and the DSS Board. And then we'll be looking at members for the DSS and the Board of Health, like through the state. Tammy Martin's already working on that a little bit at the Health Department, and Stacey Elms as well at DSS on talking with the state on getting those boards reestablished. So if, I'm not sure if there's any more discussion that needs to be had as far as if everybody is on board with going back to the true Board of Health and the DSS Board and not being the Board of Commissioners as that. But other than that, what we really need to do is establish that date for the public hearing. We can have a public hearing of this kind on an agenda for a meeting. I just need to post it and notice it. So if we gave, a couple of meetings notice or 2 meetings, I could put it at the start of a meeting as a public hearing for that. People would come and give their opinion on that if they were in favor or not in favor, and we could discuss details and have resolutions to be adopted later, as far as we just have to give a 30-day notice that these boards will be abolished as the Board of Health and the DSS Board. And Ty may have other information if he's seen anything else, but that's kind of what we discussed before in the other meetings. So, okay.
Do you have anything to add to it, Mr. Browder?
Well, the 30-day notice, that needs to be 30-day notice of the year.
Right. So if we can give and don't they also have to have a timeline notice on when the board will be, like a date? I thought that's what you and I had talked about.
Yeah, there's no minimum notice requirement on that, but you need to make it effective at some point after the resolution is adopted, to give you time to get 3-member or 5-member board, ESS board, so an 11-member board. There's the membership specified in the star.
Any questions or comments?
I have, I guess, a comment or a question. As we do the public hearing, I think it's really important that I don't know if we need to stretch it out a little bit or not necessarily, but it's very important that people know what we're getting ready to do, that gets advertised with a sufficient level of detail so that people that are interested in this will come and talk about it. And if we just say we're having a public hearing on the boards, then it may not be enough to attract attention. So I don't know, Ty, what you think about that.
I agree. You need to be, in the notice of the public hearing, you need to be specific as to what is being proposed as far as reestablishing a separate ESS board and a separate.
You and I can work together, I suppose, and do a public notice and make sure before anything's put out in the paper or anything.
To make sure that there is proper notice of what is being.
And we can,
So that we can get adequate comment.
right.
At the public hearing.
And there's absolutely nothing against having a separate public hearing. I was just thinking of just the time schedules of if we advertised the public hearing, of course, on its own, but noted it was going to be part of a regular meeting at the start, just to give it.
I don't see any problem having it at a regular meeting as long as it's advertised properly.
Right.
I'm not sure 2 weeks is long enough.
Oh, we can, I mean, we have to give a 30-day notice anyway, so we can look at like August
On the public hearing?
Minimum 30 days.
Oh, okay, good.
That's what, this is, the statute doesn't specify the mechanism to do this. This was the recommendation of Amy Walden School.
Well, that's what I was really concerned about. If 30-day notice is what I think we should do before we do the public hearing. So
And then
I'm good.
after that, it can be 2 weeks that you abolish the
Yeah.
boards, or 30 more days, or however, whatever timeline
That's
that
good.
you all
As long as
choose.
I'm good with that if it's 30 days.
Yeah. And of course, I would put that in the paper, on the county website, send it to the people on the list that want notifications of notices, so do that.
Commissioner Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Currently, we have a health advisory board, I think.
Huh?
I'm wondering how we need, to what degree, and how do we need to involve these folks who volunteered their time, basically, and they've been serving on this committee for a good while, and I'm sure some of them are probably wondering what's going on, why are we doing this, are we not satisfied with their performance, whatever. I think we need to have some communications with that board to at least let them have a heads up and let them be involved and know what's going on while we're looking at this option. And also, I would hope that when it comes time to actually appoint folks to the new boards, that we'll look at whoever is a good fit on the existing board for the new board.
And I've spoken with your health director, with Ms. Martin, about notifying what you have right now in place as the advisory board. Some of those individuals would probably continue to serve in the roles that they're in, as far as that goes, if they're accepted, for the Board of Health, if they're in that capacity. But we'll take care of notifying all those. They'll know what's going on with it, and they also will know when the public hearing is, because we'll post it everywhere. So that'll be.
Very good.
Any more questions?
The other thing too, if I may continue,
Sure.
please. The other thing too is I don't want this to just be hanging around. I really, we have some good momentum toward getting this done. And I'd really be very encouraged to see us move expeditiously. Now, I know we have certain time limitations, 30 days public hearing, but I would like to see us put this on the front burner, so to speak, and keep things moving in this new direction.
I'm looking, I mean, it would be more than 30 days, but it would give a little cushion time. September the 9th that'd give the whole month of August. We can make sure to get the public notice, how we'd like it, get it in the paper. And if you had the public hearing for September 9th, that gives more than a 30-day notice if we get it posted in the next week or so in the paper.
Good.
If that sounds okay.
Everybody else good with it?
Yes, it's on there. Yep.
September 9th. And with your permission, because I wasn't really sure at the last meetings we had with the DSS Board and Board of Health, I'm going to also post a notice in the paper that the separate Board of Health and DSS Board meetings under this current board will be canceled, because they're posted right now, and they were posted as a public notice for meetings on the third Mondays at 1 and 3. I just want to be clear about that to the public also, that those are being canceled.
Could I possibly look at an option along with that? When you make that notice, would it be appropriate to also state that the scheduled meetings will be canceled? However, if there's a need, it will be addressed at the commissioners' meeting?
Yes.
And if there is justification, a special meeting can be called for either the health or DSS boards if needed.
Yeah, I can put that in, that it can be addressed at the commissioners' meetings and that.
Clean up my words a little bit.
Okay.
I didn't do particularly well
Okay.
on that.
We'll blame it on the chili.
Thank you.
Anybody have anything else? We're just gonna pause for just about a 5-minute break.
That sounds good. Hope you.
What?
Why is this dull?
Call the meeting back to order. Moving on to our action agenda. And first up, we have our salary study proposals. And for that, we have Ms. Shannon Shaver and Glenda Pruitt.
Yeah, okay. So Glenn and I have worked on contacting the companies. At the last meeting, it was sort of consensus of the board to not even really consider the PTRC, just because that wasn't really their specialty. We just look at these four. So we contacted each company, and we also contacted 3 of their references, just to reach out and see kind of what we could get a general consensus of. Talked to a representative from each company, and all were very nice, very willing to come here either in person. A couple asked if we could do some kind of Skype or video because they're pretty far away, like Wisconsin. One's in Minnesota, so it's a pretty bit of a travel. We also checked references, and there was only 1 or 2 companies. I got 3 references from one company that were very quick to get back to me. On the other ones, it was a little slower. I had to reach out a couple of different times, and I got some references. But by far, the best references I received from all the groups, it was kind of astonishing the difference in the references was from the Mercer group. Every person I talked to could not say enough about them, including the NCACC. I spoke to Kevin Leonard with them. They just used them recently for their study. Everybody just had really good things to say. And I've also talked to that gentleman, Philip Robertson, with the Mercer group and questioned him on the price. They're the company that had that price that was the $19,750, and it was not to exceed, but had this $75 kind of inclusion for job descriptions. And he explained that to me as that would be pretty much if they wrote, he said they've gone into counties that had no job descriptions, and that's if they kind of start you from the ground up with no materials. So that $75 would be a worst case scenario per job description. I did explain to him that ours were very old and outdated, as I explained to the other companies. And he said he still didn't foresee being the maximum amount on them since we did have job descriptions in place. And some may still be fine. They would just look at them and review them. But even if they rewrote every single one we had, it would still put their quote with the $19,750. And if we did every job description, the total would come out around 41, which is still under our 45 budgetary amount that we have for that. But I got some okay references from the other companies. Of course, let's see. I spoke with the McGrath company. I didn't get a lot of information back on anybody from them. I only received 1 reference back, but it was sort of a different kind of study than we're looking at doing. They've done some smaller areas like a fire department for a city, things like that. Just couldn't quite compare to what we were looking at. On the Archer company, I spoke to an individual, the closest one I could get to. They had done a study recently for a city in Georgia for 5,000 employees in a county that they did a study for. And they had some good things to say, but also some things that were kind of left to be desired, according to them. And the other references were sort of on the same line. I reached out to all the references from the Baker Tilly company by phone and by email, and I didn't get any responses back from them. But I have spoken with Ann Antonson, who is with that company, who's been very helpful. That's the $104,000 quote on that one, but none of their references contacted me back, and I reached out a couple of different times to them. So with what I have to go on, the Mercer group, Mr. Robertson has been really helpful and called several times, asked if I need any more information, and being that I got all 3 references from them, and one of those being the NCACC they just did a study for, kind of takes a little weight as far as that's concerned. So I'll just give you time if you want to ask any questions or go back over anything else that you're thinking of. They were, like I said, they were all willing to come on the 12th. Of course, the North Carolina company, which was the Mercer, would be here in person. The others were a little hesitant about traveling. It's a pretty good distance, but they would try to come in person or do by Skype or, however we could set that up for them. So I don't know if you would still want to consider all 4 or narrow that a little bit more, or how the board wants to proceed with that.
Okay. Somebody, any questions?
Let me go first, or somebody else want to?
That's fine, you go ahead.
I went through the 3 today really pretty close, and I did a calculation on Mercer where I came up with 37,150 using 232 job descriptions. This was a worst case.
Right.
232 times 75 equals 17,400, and then plus their 19,750.
Right.
So they had a good price, and then Archer, just to do job descriptions, they had it broken out separate. They were 6,500 for job descriptions. So you know, I think price-wise, Mercer definitely comes out no matter how you cut it.
Yeah.
And so when I looked at the three of them, like a couple things I liked about Mercer, for instance, right on the introductory letter, it says, we will meet with every employee to discuss his or her questionnaire answers and get clarification. I thought that was kind of unusual that
Yeah,
because the rest of them just were going to meet with selected people or whatever.
yeah, he said they spend quite a bit of time in the county when they're doing the study, which is nice too.
The thing I don't really understand is why they didn't quote it a little higher. I mean, to do the kind of stuff they're saying they're going to do, take a little time. I'm surprised it's not a little higher than what it is.
Well, Mr. Robertson told me that.
They probably would, yeah, compared to the others. But the two, you know, I kind of, just based on the proposals, first of all, I've taken out that highest price one, even though they're probably the best one of all of them with their technical skills. At least they were before I looked at them. But I wouldn't pay that much to have it done. And then PTRC we talked about last time. So I was down to these three. And then, I really like what the Archer's proposal is really good. You know, it's got all these, a very detailed description of what they're going to do and all these tasks and the schedule and everything. So I would be really comfortable with them too, but I think they were how much?
They're 60.
60-something thousand.
Yeah, 67. Yeah, 63.8. Yep.
Yeah, so based on the proposals and so forth, I don't think I could go with, I would pick Mercer too as the first one. I could almost do it without having them come and talk to us.
And I asked Mr. Robertson the same question. I said, I was kind of astonished at the difference in your price and everybody else since I was the board. And he said, well, we've been doing this for a long time. I believe in being fair. This is our specialty. It's what we do. So we know what we can charge and get by for, a company or an agency our size. And he felt like that was a fair price. And like you said, they're pretty personal. I think they'll spend a lot of time.
Just want to make sure that we're going to have all updated job descriptions when we're done, though.
Right.
They understand that, don't they?
Right. And I think, if you want, he's in Lewisburg, North Carolina. If you wanted to maybe just have him come out and speak, so we're not having a lot of people do a lot of traveling if we're not sure of, and just be sure we're really clear and ask all the questions you want to ask to him, he'd be more than willing to do that.
Allowed to have one come and not the others, Tyler? Oh, yeah. Okay. I don't break any solicitation rules here.
Yeah. I just am thinking from an aspect of the others are very far away, and that's a lot of traveling if we know that we're pretty much leaning one direction or the other. Because you can technically pick it from, from here, but.
And I think I would go with Mercer just especially with what you said tonight on top of that, with what I already looked at, so.
Their references were just way different than the others.
So you have, anybody else have any questions? Commissioner?
Maybe another commissioner would like to go first.
So I'll let you-
Morris and I have been talking more than the other guys.
That's fine. We'll let you go on ahead.
Sure?
Yeah.
All right.
Love to hear you talk.
My computer was not working the way it's supposed to. It was operators in a whatever.
Operator error?
Yes, more or less. I didn't get it working until this morning, so I haven't gone through these things like some of the other, well, particularly Commissioner Morris. So I'm very interested in his observation. This is kind of a skill he has anyway, this type of thing, the personnel sides of things, and all I've noticed over the years. So I put a lot of credits in his observation or his assessment of the possibilities. I do have a question, and if I may ask Commissioner Morris for his opinion on this, since he's reviewed the proposal. And I'm interested in if we're going to do this study, are we including staffing? Is it just compensation, or are we also including staffing?
What aspect of staffing?
Right amount? Heavy here, light there, that type thing?
I don't think the RFP asked for that, did it, Linda?
It doesn't specify that. I think probably a good company might make a recommendation if they feel like they're in a place that when they especially meet with every single employee, they might come out with some recommendations that you might need to add staff in certain places, but that's not specified in the RFP.
Right. I couldn't recall whether we did include that or not, because that to me is also useful information. It helps level the playing field as far as what's a fair amount of responsibility given a certain level in our organization. So I wish that could be handled in some way. It may be late in the game from what I'm hearing to try to add that or try to include it, but
Oh, you can always do a change order.
regardless of who we choose.
Mhm.
Excuse me, Mr.
Plus, I
Chairman,
wouldn't-
Ty, are you on board with that?
I wouldn't think the scope of making a recommendation on that would cost you very much, though. It's because they're kind of intuitively know that just by doing the study. So
Exactly.
I
they're
doubt
gonna
they'd have
interview
to,
these
they
people.
probably wouldn't even have to do any extra work.
No.
So if we can get that kind of extra information along with our compensation study, salary study, to me, that might prove useful. Don't want to stir the water, muddy the water, complicate things, but I think the more good, valid, accurate, appropriate information we can have regarding any aspect of the county's operation, to me, the better. I thought kind of earlier in this process that we would be getting more than one to actually come let us ask questions. If I had to pick two right now, I think I would probably pick Mercer. And I don't like that word, given that's what that infection is, isn't it? But they can't help what their name
Mercer.
is. And anyway, have them and the Archer Group would be my two choices if we were going to do two. Now, based on, I really like the sound of the association, Kevin Leonard. You spoke personally with Kevin.
I've been emailing even Kevin during the meeting a little bit because he was out of town in Vegas last week for the NCACC, so he was a little late getting back to me on some of it, but he's been emailing today back and forth about it, so.
You may not have much money left.
Yeah.
Vegas.
So,
But if he gives this group, given his knowledge base that he's working from, a strong thumbs up, that means a lot to me to hear that. The Archer Group, I've talked with these people for years. I haven't talked with them. I didn't see them last commissioners conference, but I bet 4 or 5 years running there, I'd stop and talk to these people extensively because I thought it was important that we do what their service would provide for us. And I just had a good feeling about them. So if I had to go with two, I would go Archer and Mercer. Question may remain, do we need to, or are we in a position just to say to the Mercer Group, when can you start? And another question too, along with staffing, is have we missed any loose ends? Are we letting anything slip through the cracks as far as information we could get from this study if we just asked for it?
I don't think so. I mean, I feel like we reviewed that RFP tons of times, everybody, and we revised it and made a lot of changes and before it ever even got sent out to them, and then it's been out. So I don't think so. I feel like it's a pretty thorough request. And as Commissioner Moore said, I think that any company that you're working with, a request like that, they're going to come up with something. Like I said, they're talking about meeting with each employee individually. They're going to get a good feel for, people are going to give their honest opinions about their jobs. If they feel like their department they're in is understaffed, things like that, they're going to come back with a recommendation anyway, I feel like. But I feel like that's something you could ask of them to change as far as a change order to the request, and they wouldn't have an issue with that anyway. And it wouldn't be, I wouldn't think, even a substantial increase.
Another almost intangible aspect of what we're looking at is employee morale. And I don't know that there's a study designed that can really determine that, but I think if a company provides the service that Mercer or whoever's chosen would be providing, I think they would have some feel for the comfort level of our employees. And I've always felt like there's a lot more to employee satisfaction than just money. That there's other things that are important also. And if we could pick up on any part of that, to me, that would be useful knowledge as well. I don't know how we put that into an RFP, or I don't know even how to word a request for it, but it would be good to know. For me, it would. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And also, if we could, at some point, I would like to hear from our manager.
Sure. Mr. Oakwood, do you have anything to add to it?
No, I've been listening to Ms. Shaver talk about their interview process that she took with the vendors, and listen to her talk about how she interviewed the references. Thank you. And it sounds like that the Mercer group is by far the better group as far as the reference-based recommendations. And, you know, it sounds to me like they gave you a bid to do the actual study, and then they put in, now if you want to do some qualifications some job descriptions, then we'll do that at $75 a piece. And you guys already know that. So my recommendation is to move forward with the Mercer group and just let's get it started.
Commissioner Yachts, Commissioner Mendenhall, anything I would like to add or ask?
No, I've actually read over them, and I come down to the same two, Mercer and Archer, but, you know, I believe in buying local, so to speak. And when I look at that and I look at the costs associated, and then now, obviously, the feedback that you're getting, I lean heavily towards Mercer when I'm looking at it in that aspect. And if the majority of the board feels necessarily to bring Mercer in and talk with them, then I'm fine with that, but I would also support moving forward as quickly as possible with this. This is something that was pretty important to me.
Commissioner Mendenhall?
Sure. Always. I read over all these pretty thoroughly, as Commissioner Morris said he did, and I had mine in an order, prioritization order. I had Mercer as my 1, Archer as my 2, and McGrath as 3. And, Baker Tilly, $104,000, and I looked at what they offered. Certainly, I couldn't find anything they offered that would make up the difference in that amount of money. I looked at several of the things that each of the groups did, including Mercer. Mercer was $19,750, and then the $75 per hour on job descriptions. What did they offer? They offered job descriptions as an extra, including the salary study, comparative analysis with other counties, qualifications, people working those jobs, the educational level, and I guess what topped it off for me tonight was the references. I think references are very important, especially if you put credence in who's giving you the reference. And I've known Kevin now for several years, and I think each of you, if you know Kevin, he's heads up our county commissioners. And if he turns in a strong reference, that just adds to my listing as Mercer as my top choice. Now, whether y'all want to bring the top two in or just Mercer in, or if you just want to take action tonight and take a vote. I'm fine either way. I'm just saying, right now, Mercer's my one, Archer's my two, and McGrath's my three, Mr. Chairman, and for all the reasons I listed, it's not just the money. The money is a factor, a big factor. I think if you can offer two people offering the same thing and one's $20,000 or $30,000 less than the other one, I mean, to me, it makes it pretty simple. So my choice, if we did not bring them in and interview them, my choice would be Mercer, Archer. So Mercer would be my number one. And I listed my rationale.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, sir.
I've also looked at these right here, and I, like the comment Commissioner Yachts made. I like keeping local companies, giving them the business, especially one in North Carolina. And after seeing what all they presented, and then after hearing what you had to say, Shannon, that pretty much sealed the deal for me on that. What all they had to offer, and then the comments that you got, the references and stuff. To the board, I would be comfortable moving forward with Mercer and getting this show on the road right here. But with that, I'm just going to poll the board and see what y'all want to do. If y'all want to, Commissioner Walker.
I have another question, please.
Yes, sir.
I didn't interrupt, I'm sorry. But when we did a salary study back many years ago for the town, for King, I'm sure all of our employees were interviewed. I like to think that they were. But we also compared the salaries of our employees to the private sector at that time. And that was useful information, just to see a comparable job with the town. How did it compare with the business right next door? Or as whatever that comparison could be made. Is any of that built into what we're looking at with the Mercer Group? Or are they doing just strictly employees?
Well, they'll do comparisons. I mean, that's part of what the salary study is. Is that what you mean? Like just to other like-sized counties and private sector, they'll compare to every, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
One other question too is, let's say we select the Mercer Group, which that appears to be where things are headed, and I'm comfortable with that. I have no problem with that. Can we, once they're selected, ask a representative of that company to come before our board just to be sure that we have a clear understanding with them, hear directly from them how they plan to do various aspects of this study? Would that be a reasonable request?
I mean, Philip Robertson, as well as the other group, he was prepared to come in person on August the 12th, if you so desired, or put him in your top choices to come. So, yes.
What I'm asking is, if we basically have made our choice, and we asked Mr. Robertson, I think he would be the most likely person to come on August 12th, just to have some dialogue with him and be sure that we're not missing anything, and be sure that we're understanding each other to the greatest degree possible. I'd be interested in the other commissioners' thoughts about that.
I mean, there's nothing prohibit us from doing that. We want to do it.
I'd like to have some discussion with him.
Some of the proposals even had specifics in there about them briefing the elected board, but I don't know if this one did. I don't remember.
Well, he's
Part of their normal process.
Shannon, did
He's
he-
more than willing.
he
He's
say
more
he
than
was
willing.
to
Oh,
go?
yes.
One
Yeah.
thing, to Commissioner Walker's other comment, though, they're all pretty hesitant on doing comparisons with the private sector because a lot of times you can't get that information.
Yeah, it's harder to.
So they won't give you much of a guarantee on a good private sector. Because, there's no legal way to get it. Unless somebody's just feeling cooperative or something.
They may get it from some publications, from some sources. Generally,
Yeah.
this type job requires this type salary, that kind of thing. But
It's about as deep as they can go usually.
yeah. So could we ask him to come to our next meeting and?
Absolutely.
Or we, I guess we need to make somebody needs to make a motion that we will be selecting this group if that's the pleasure of the board. Or any commissioner.
Does anybody care to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the salary study and award it to Mercer Group.
You want to, with the exception of having them next meeting to come talk?
I think that's, yeah, I mean, if that's what we want to do, I mean, I think that's part of it, right?
Okay.
It is, and if you'll notice, it's on page 9 in their proposal. The Mercer Group schedules an initial meeting. It says with the county manager, others, but I talked to him about coming to this meeting to discuss the process, tasks to be performed in the study, to include reasonable dedication of key personnel and meet with senior management, all department heads, employees, to explain the study and the processes to be used. Weekly progress reports will be communicated to the administrative services directors with additional updates if so required. So you can kind of ebb and flow with them as much as you want and have as much input and have them giving you feedback as they go. So I feel like they're going to be very easy to work with and give you what you need. So
If I may, Mr. Chairman, from what Shannon has shared with us, sounds like, unless I'm missing something, that they are almost wanting to come before our board to have some discussion.
Great. Okay. I have a motion made by Commissioner Yance. Anybody want to second it? Any discussion?
I'll just say that, all these bidders are responsible and responsive bidders to our RFP. Given that, and then, the information we've gleaned from the proposals, it'd be difficult not to pick Mercer given the cost difference in the two. So I think we're on solid footing by doing that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
and I'm just going to have the Mercer Group come to the August 12th meeting. I'll put them on the information agenda because they'll just be providing, unless you want me to put them on discussion, if there are some things that you might want to discuss that might drive a change or something. I don't, what the board would prefer.
Mostly for just clarification, but I'd like to be able to make a comment or ask a question,
Oh.
and it may be more appropriate on a discussion.
So you want to just put it on discussion?
We do that on information, don't we?
You can still ask questions, but I'm just meaning if something comes up and you decide you want to make a change to the original, what they proposed, if the board elects to add something or something, if you wanted to make a change, you might need to act on that. But other than that, we could just put it in information.
Well, the thing about having it on discussion, we rarely go from information to action. But if there is something we need to take action on based on the briefing that the Mercer Group will be giving us, it would be much easier to move it from discussion to action, I would think.
Okay.
Sound good?
I'm fine either way.
Moving on to the YMCA recreation contract. Mr. Oakley?
Mr. Chairman, this is the contract that needs to be approved. We do this every year at this time of the year during the month of July and August. This contract is ready. It's also the same as, it was also approved in the budget. You know, you had your small increase of $3,000 some that were added to this one due to increased cost from the Y, and I'm just requesting that the board move forward with signing this contract. And you also in here, you see a memo from Times office that everything looks good and ready.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
And we can do it as part of a discussion if somebody needs to make a motion. Either way, I'm not locked in either way.
I'll make a motion then and we approve it. Why contract?
Okay. Second. Is there a second?
Thank you, sir. A couple of things. One point in the contract that's been bothersome to me is the YMCA shall provide Stokes County Recreation Department committee, a Stokes County Recreation Department committee under the authorization of the Stokes Family YMCA Volunteer Board of Management. The committee shall consist of Stokes Family YMCA volunteers, Stokes County citizens, and a designated representative of the Stokes County Board of Commissioners. The committee will meet at least one time quarterly. And this was very important to me in the earlier phase of this process when I had stronger support for the why and for the arrangement and all that. I voted for it a few times, and then upon reflection, I said, this is just not a fair situation to the county to be given a Y 117,000 at the time. Now I think it's a lot over 120 for recreation in Stokes County. And I think if we look at any county, other county in the state, we'll find no comparable county that puts that little toward recreation in their county. I think we're unique. And this is something that needs to be worked on, but now it's just a matter of the Y contract. It's always rubber stamped. There's never any dialogue much with the Y ongoing about it. It's just a simple vote and it's done again. But I would like at some point, number one, to have a Y representative here. Number two, I'd like to be, if I'm going to continue as the representative on this board, which now I'm placed there by the action of the board, until I am replaced in that capacity, I'd like to at least know when these meetings are going to be, because I haven't been notified of the last two. And we have went as long as close to a year at a time without even having these meetings. The other thing is, I wonder when this board or some board is going to really deal with recreation in this county. I think the people deserve far more than what we're trying to do with just this contract. And I would like at some point to have some serious discussion and serious thought from a board, hopefully this board, as far as moving recreation forward in the county. We've had some opportunities to really do some good things regarding recreation. I think we're light on parks. We need more parks. You look at things like the opioid crisis. How much of that is attributable to not having adequate and appropriate recreation opportunities in the county? It's hard to quantify that. It's hard to know. But I really suspect, based on information from the Sheriff's Department and others, that if we had more recreation, more appropriate to the needs throughout the county, I think that would be a help, an aid to the quality of life in many ways. So I know this contract will be approved. It always is. Sometimes the vote's 4-1, sometimes it's 3-2. But it usually is rubber stamped, and we just keep moving down the same path. And furthermore, if the people of this part of the county are satisfied with the recreation that's being provided, then I want to know that. And I'll sleep a little better. That would sort of relieve some of my anxieties regarding recreation. The other thing too is we're going to be doing a study. I think it's got something to do with a wellness center. I think we're depriving ourselves of an opportunity there if we don't include citizen satisfaction regarding recreation in Stokes County. So I hope when it comes time to do that study, the other board members, I'm certainly on board, as you can tell, will include citizen satisfaction, what we're doing well, what we're not doing well as far as recreation in our county, as well as feasibility for wellness centers. I don't see feasibility for just one wellness center. I hope at a time in the future we'll have wellness community and wellness centers strategically located in various areas of the county. But that's all I'm going to say. I know the hour's late, Mr. Chairman, so I'll stop where there. Its outcome's very predictable anyway. It always is.
Thank you, sir. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, moving on to the resolution for storage/maintenance building. Ms. Shannon?
There are a couple of these on here in a row that Julia actually worked with County Attorney Browder on getting these on this time. She just was kind of doing some housekeeping on these as far as, like, if you'll notice, you had the capital project ordinances and the consent agenda for some of these same things. These are the resolutions that are required for her to put in for us to authorize pretty much to pay ourselves back for some things. It doesn't mean we're moving forward with them now or anytime even in the next few months, just a formality that has to be taking place. And she wanted to go ahead and get these finished and approved so that when we are ready and we start going out like with the LGC and doing all the other paperwork that's to be done for these, that these are already finished. So, and Ty suggested putting them separately in action so each one is acted on. That's why they're not together anywhere. So.
Have a motion? Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just one thing, Mr. Chair, I think 2 of the 3 resolutions need a minor modification on that first whereas under the thing, because they all say EMS facility.
Let's see. And it could be, I proofread them for Julia when she put them in. I caught a date in there that was in there, but I didn't look at the, let's see.
Under that bold part.
Oh, and I can, I can change these anyway because I have to go in and actually put the dates in them. So let me look at what you mean and I'll make sure I make a note.
Actually, it's just the first whereas where it,
First one.
on all 3 of them, it says
Okay.
EMS facility. I think it should specify that.
Commissioners. Yeah, I think that was let's see.
That's the only thing I saw.
Yep, gotcha. Okay.
Commissioner Walker?
I need to ask a question again. As I mentioned, I was having some computer issues. Turns out it was my fault. User ineptness. But
It's all. See
I thought at one time we were discussing upgrading a storage facility right up the hill here. Is this included in what we're looking at this evening?
Mhm.
What else is included? You're saying
And it was in the capital project ordinances and the consent agenda.
You've got your maintenance storage building,
so it's just basically
hill.
that building.
and each one of them is separate, like Shannon just said, but you've got your EMS station that you're gonna do in Walnut Cove, and you've got your solid waste transfer station in Walnut Cove that you'll do. Then you have also your waste station at the landfill that will be done also. And what was it, about four different
Yeah,
projects?
there's one more in the capital project ordinance, but in these, the resolutions, there's one for the storage maintenance building, there's one for the Walnut Cove EMS station, and there's one for the Walnut Cove solid waste transfer. That's just in the resolutions for the authorizing to pay yourself back. In the capital project ordinances, there was one more listed in there, which was the, maybe the scale house, I think, but that wasn't in there, we didn't need that for these, so. And thank you for catching the EMS thing, because as I type those back up tonight, I'll go through there. So, sometimes the copying and pasting is the devil.
And this was all approved in the budget, I believe?
Yes. It was.
And what amount was the total amount for what we're doing here? If
Can you see it at all? Can you,
Yeah,
help
I'm
you
with
pull it
now.
up? I can go through them.
I'm up and going now.
Okay. So,
Diana, help me.
yeah, let me get into the other page here so I can give you the. So, your Walnut Cove EMS station was the 650,000. Okay, and then the storage maintenance building is, right now it says 500,000 on there. That was discussed though that might not possibly cost that much. That was just the money that was allocated right now. And then your solid waste building scale, which you don't have a resolution for the payment back on, is 125. And then on the Walnut Cove solid waste, that one is $300,382.
So about 1.7 million or so, sounds like. Pretty good bit, but I think these are all useful projects. And what are we doing with this resolution?
You've done these every year when you do a budget, and then you come back in and you're doing big projects. So the resolution, and Ty may be able to offer some more clarity to help you understand, is just authorizing to pay yourself back for funds that may be used during the process of this. So like when you read on here where it says resolution of the County of Stokes declaring the intent of the County of Stokes to reimburse itself for capital expenditures incurred in connection with the acquisition, construction, and equipping of, and that says storage maintenance building on this one, from the proceeds of certain tax-exempt obligations to be executed and delivered in calendar year 1920.
These are just LGC requirements.
Yeah, it's just it's a formality that you do every year when you're doing any kind of capital project. So Julia's just trying to cross these off her list, so when it does come time, that these are all finished.
So this is
Kind
something,
of gets
as
paid back.
Commissioner Morris mentioned, can be carried to the LGC, and
Right.
they're gonna
Right.
be looking for something. I got it.
Correct.
I'm with you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Anybody else? All right, motion is second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Have a resolution for the Walnut Cove EMS station.
Sharon, can we do the next two together?
I don't see why we couldn't, and moving on.
Is that okay with you? You said to put them on separate, so you told Julia they needed to have a,
Separate
Okay,
okay.
do with
Okay.
higher ed requirements.
okay.
I'll make sure all the i's are dotted.
All right, so just a resolution for the Walnut Cove EMS station. Do I have a motion? A second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Second. Who was the second?
Jamie.
Jamie, okay, sorry.
All right, now for the resolution of the Walnut Cove Solid Waste Transfer Station. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Commissioner Morris, a second. Second. Commissioner Young. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Stokes County Health Department lab fee changes.
Hang on just a second, if you will, please, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Let me
sir.
pull that one up. Starting to like this way of doing things.
These are the lab fee changes that Tammy discussed at your Board of Health that they really should have been doing a while back. But they're just looking for approval on those to go up a few dollars in some places to go with what the LabCorp fees are being charged.
Yeah, we're losing money at this
Yes, correct.
I think we pretty much already approved it in the meeting, just had to put it to this meeting to get it official.
Make a motion to approve the new lab fee.
Second.
He got that first. Young
Doesn't matter,
first.
whoever.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right. Tobacco sign at Reagan Building. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Commissioner Walker?
How'd you know?
I already seen you looking at me.
I don't like this, to be as totally comprehensive as it is. I know that we have people who like to use certain forms of tobacco besides smoking. And I don't see that they're really harming, certainly no one except maybe themselves, and there's still, I think, some question about how much harm there is in smokeless tobacco. But I think if I read this right, this prohibits tobacco use of any form in this building. Is that right?
Mhm. Because you have environmental health housed here.
This right here is within 50 foot of the structure.
Right.
This is outside 50-foot structure.
What are you reading the general statute that's placed in there? The
No,
local
I remember
government?
what Tammy said when she came and presented to us. And I know that there are people who, I mean, you got this mix of people. You're going to have some that really like their smokeless tobacco.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't the issue whether the statute allows you to use it if it's a health department office?
Right.
You're either in violation of the statute or you're not.
Right. So that's what she was saying, as long as environmental health is in this building, every time they come to do their state inspections, they're going to get dinged for it. Unless you move environmental health out of this building, then you don't have to worry about it as much, but it's because we have environmental health here. Anywhere environmental health is, or health department related things where they give out information on health and things like that, they can't really, you have to have something posted about that.
Is there any, is that a realistic option to move them out, move them over for the rest of the health department?
We don't want to do that
you know,
for other
Yeah,
reasons.
They're in a good area because they're
The main reason that we're moving them in here is a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
Where somebody could come and any permit they needed, but I don't really, to me, it's just what the state is mandating here is too far reaching.
It's a general statute.
It
Right.
is, but
Isn't
laws can be made, laws can be changed.
But this one's in place now, and we can't deliberately violate general statutes, can we?
Well, the sign can fall over. I won't, I mean, I'm trying to swim upstream against a strong current, so
Have you read that statute? Like
I
with
mean,
the
I don't
the
think you're
smoking? I
trying to
don't-
swim upstream against current. It's in place. It's in place. And I think we've talked about this numerous times. My brother's still farming tobacco.
We got,
Okay.
I see
But-
tobacco fields
but-
here
but-
between here and
but-
Keene.
He still has tobacco. However, in 2008, we had to put signs up at all the schools, no tobacco products allowed. And we didn't have a choice. We were mandated to do that.
Right.
And tobacco, as I told you at the last meeting, has put many people, has made a living for many Stokes County residents. However,
I am one.
and my dad was one too. However, what I'm saying is, Jimmy, is once that is made into a statute, a mandate, we cannot, well, I mean, we can't just make up our minds we're going to go against it.
I understand.
Can I read you
Let me make one kind of follow-up comment, if I may? And this bugged me the whole time I was Reynolds. I did not take pleasure in working for a company that made a product that was detrimental to people's health, although it's a free choice whether they wanted to use tobacco or not. Each individual could make that choice for themselves. But my contention all along was, what about other things, other health factors that really matter? I think obesity has passed tobacco as far as a health risk. Are we going to take the Coke machines out? Because that's one of the main contributors. You
Coke
really miss
machines,
your Mountain Dew.
do you want, Coke machines are fine to take out, just so you don't take out the Mountain Dew.
But you see what I'm saying. I think tobacco is just so easy of target, and I don't want to just get into a lot of philosophy, but I'm a little protective of tobacco because it has done so much for this area. It's put roofs over a lot of people's head, educated a lot of our children, put food on our table, you name it. And I don't want to just sort of carte blanche, just stick the spear in deeper.
I guess unfortunately we have no choice but to actually put this sign up because they're mandating it. But I guess we could talk to our state reps about the problem we have with it. But as of right now, we don't have a choice but to put the sign up, unfortunately. So.
Well, I could be more comfortable supporting the sign up, putting the sign up, if I knew there would be follow-up at the state level to give a little flexibility, particularly for those adults who choose to use smokeless tobacco to no other person's harm that I'm aware of except potentially their own. And I know there's a thing about a message, what kind of example are we setting, but, my gosh, look at many other things you want to look at. Well, anyhow, I'm just using time up for the board that I probably don't even need to be, so I'll stop there.
Do we have him?
There's an interpretation on this benchmark thing that Tammy handed out the other day with the highlighter that says, where it tells you that the reason for this is their intent in mandating this is the tobacco in any of its forms has been demonstrated to cause adverse health effects and therefore is not allowed in the health department or any building that's connected to the health department, which environmental health is connected. It's a requirement, it says the consolidated agreement, and should be an example to the community from the agency that promotes good health. This activity demonstrates that the health department is supportive of tobacco control. And that's part of their benchmarks for accreditation that they have to meet. And that's the reason why they're doing all of it as a whole and not just the smoking, it's the tobacco use, and also mandating that from the front of the building as far as the smoking 50 feet away. Okay.
Is there any more discussion? Motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Stokes County Health Department. Can you read that?
It's the adjudication
Adjudication
policy.
policy. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the Stokes County Health Department overall operations policy. Have a motion?
So moved.
Commissioner Morris made a motion.
I'll second it.
Commissioner Minall second. Any discussion?
Please.
Yes, sir.
When Tammy, director, health department director came before this board, there was some discussion about not having to do a certain report every year in the strategic plan, I think, and possibly looking at doing that every 5 years. Is that in this latest?
No, this is what you approved to move to action at the Board of Health meeting on the 15th, so she wouldn't have changed anything from then. She said she would look into it with the state and with like her accreditation requirements and see if she was allowed to just update it once every 5 years, because for now they've been updating it. So this is only what you saw in front of you at the Board of Health that got moved to this action agenda.
So she is evaluating the possibility, because she seemed to really like the sound of it.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, very good.
Have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed?
No opposed. I was ahead of myself.
Need a motion for
Motion to adjourn.
No, it was just a little.
Have a motion to adjourn. Have a second? Second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Just nicked it.
Meeting adjourned.
Other than the motorcycle, it's
It was
all
my
over
vote
it.
on that.
Gotcha.
I was ahead of myself on that adjournment motion.
I got you.
Y'all have a good